Hello, welcome to Saying Average. This is a video I didn't think that I would need to do because, like I said, people have already done it and they've done a very good job on it, but I've noticed it's been coming up a bit more recently as a question in my algorithm, in my recommendations for the channel and stuff like that. So I thought, why not do my own spin of it if it's like such a thing at the moment? And that is vampirism. Is it a religion? Is it a cult? What is it, basically? The thing is, I don't really have anything really in mind for it. I'm not entirely sure how to lay this advice on 101 out, to be honest. Because I've wanted to mention it because it's, like I said, it's been coming up more frequently as a question on a topic now. But I don't actually really know how to structure this one, so if it seems a little bit sort of jumbled and all over the place, that would be why. Also, apologies if I sound a little croaky. It's spring's coming up, and the one hay fever symptom I do experience, which is a really dry, crusty throat, is becoming a thing. I might occasionally mention other people or other YouTube channels, because like I said, other people have done this and they've done this well. So if you hear a name such as, I don't know, Helly, that is another channel, and I will try to link their stuff in the annotations, but I have been rather forgetful of annotations recently, so if I forget, apologies. Yeah, first things first, is vampirism a cult? It's a bit of a weird one. It's like a bit of a well yes but actually no situation, because it depends on what sort of vampirism stuff you're into or you're interested in, stuff like that. The short answer, no, vampirism is not a cult. In general, the general populace of vampirism and the side that you'll probably see of it, no, it's not a cult, it's just a spirituality thing. I don't like saying this, it sounds really weird, but there's living vampires out there, and in general, it's part of their lifestyle and part of their spiritual practice. But the reason I also say no is because there are certain organisations, I won't list any, but I do have some gripes with some, hence I'm a Ronin, which in the vampire community basically means I'm part of the community, but I'm not part of a big house, group, order, coven, cult, whatever you want to call them. There are some of them that come across rather cult-like, and if you're interested in one, but you're not entirely sure if it comes across as cult-like, you can use and it's quite ironic or appropriately named here, but it's called the bite method. Some of you might have heard of it, some of you might not have heard of it. But basically a list of questions, and it's basically red flags for you. It sorts out all the red flags for you as to, if it answers a lot of the questions with yes, but it is most likely a cult, and try to stay away from it. So if you're not sure, there's always that. So that's what I mean by, well, yes, but actually no. General vampirism, no. Some organisations you might want to sort of look into, is what I'm saying. I've said this in a previous video, but, if you want to be extra sure, there are other channels that do sort of is vampirism a cult? Vampire Helly, not a shout out, but also has sort of a video on it. I've linked it before, I will link it again just in case you haven't seen the previous video that I've mentioned it in. It's also in my Decent Vampire, now spelled with a Y, media playlist. Like I said, not a shout out or a promotion or anything, just a decent video that also explains this from a different, but also living vampire's point of view. As for whether vampirism is a religion, again, the short answer is no. The longer answer goes into the definition of a religion versus a spirituality. So, one of them is a little bit confusing, because one of them is, again, a bit of a well yes, but actually no. But one I found on spirituality versus religion is, while they are often used interchangeably, spirituality often refers to a personal or individual connection to something larger than oneself, often focusing on meanings and purpose, while religion is often a structured system of beliefs and practices, usually involving community, specific rules and doctrines, and a deity or deities, with a more external focus on following established rules and traditions. Essentially, spirituality is often about the inner journey and truths, while religion is the outward expression of those beliefs through structured systems. Again, it's a bit of a well yes but actually no situation, because the whole expressing yourself through your beliefs thing is very much what some vampirism does. It's more sort of the lifestyle side of it, but yes, in a way, but also no in a way, because vampirism comes across a lot more on the spirituality side of things than the religion side of things, because even though, and like I said, certain house groups, cults, orders, havens, gnomes, whatever you want to call them, gnomes is Egyptian, I know, but they can have a structure that is rather similar to religious beliefs rather than spiritual beliefs. But because these house groups, covens, orders, blah 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 blah, they don't all follow the same set of rules in a sense. Like, yes, there's the Black Veils, which is basically the vampire's code of conduct, in a sense, which, ironically, even though a lot of people are like, in the community are like, ooh, role players and stuff, is technically the original draft of the Black Veils was heavily based on the Masquerade from Vampire the Masquerade, so you can't really complain. And what I'm trying to say is it's more spirituality rather than religion, because other than the Black Veils, which in a sense is kind of like a vampire's commandments, other than that, really, every house, group, coven, order, yada yada yada, I have to pick one, because this is getting a bit long-winded. Every house has their own thing that they believe in outside of the Black Veil. Some of them have entities, some of them don't have entities. Some of them have egregores, which are different than entities, because while entities are written about in a lot of spirituality and have like a lot of history and lore behind them, egregores 9 times out of 10 are usually created by a single person or a group and like fed and believed in that way. As an example, something like the ancient Egyptian goddess Aset obviously has been written about and praised and stuff by many people from many different cultures and many different religions, and it's been throughout history for ages and ages and ages and ages. Whereas something like, I don't know, you making up a red dragon called No God, again, it's your own sort of creation and it's fed certain energies from certain people. Yeah, you might have your family believe in them as well, or you might have your friends believe in them as well, but in layman's terms, a watered down version of egregores versus entities is one's more personal and one's more widespread, in a sense. Technically, I have my own personal egregore. I have a few, actually, vampiric entities, but ones that specifically recently is I have a vampiric egregore. Technically, it's an egregore. I have my own vampiric creation, known as Farai. Moving away from entities and egregores before I go way off tangent, because I've spoke about them enough. In summary, in short, before we move on to the next thing that I want to talk about, is vampirism a cult? No, generally. If it's like just someone's own individual branch of vampirism, or they're not in any vampiric house, no, it technically isn't a cult. But if it is part of a vampiric house, you might want to investigate it further, because different strokes for different folks, your mileage may vary. Is vampirism a religion? No, technically it's more akin to a spirituality, even though it does have some overlap with religions, such as, you know, having their own set of rules and commandments and stuff. But 9 times out of 10, vampirism in itself is quite a unique experience, and therefore that uniqueness does not make it religion. Okay, understanding me? Let's move on then. Next thing I want to go on about is vampirism as a predatory spirituality. Not predatory as in, like, the way you're probably thinking, predatory in the way that, like, life eats life. I wouldn't Google what is predatory spirituality, because the oversight does not understand the assignment. It goes on more about spiritual exploitation, which is people, like, using money and harming people and belittling people and stuff for their own personal gain. That is not technically the predatory spirituality that we're going to go on about today. It's more akin to, like, spiritual scamming. Predatory spirituality in a sense that life eats life. This has a new name now, let me know, because a lot of places do not seem to understand the assignment when I say predatory spirituality. Technically, this falls under psychic vampirism, but technically that's also its own thing, so... Alright, there we go, we finally got it. I needed to type in what is predatory spirituality, LHP, or left-hand path, for it to understand what I was on about, but that just goes to say that, like, words are constantly changing. But now the internet finally understands the assignment. I already wanted it for a definition, because it's hard to explain otherwise, but like I said, we finally got it, so I can finally explain it properly. The problem with, like, the left-hand path being so individualistic and solitary in a sense is that even the internet doesn't really know. Go out to Left-Hand Sorcery, by the way. This is the website I'm using for this. The definition will be cut out because it gets a little opinionated on blood drinking, so yeah, the definition is as follows. Predatory spirituality. This is becoming a lot more common in left-hand path circles. This is also known as the practice of vampirism. This is the exploitation of energetic resources from another being. In this context, as left-hand path practice, predatory spirituality can refer to technique of feeding on the vital energies, whether it be by life force or blood essence, from humans. It can also refer to a larger tradition with its own practices, customs, and beliefs. These vampiric traditions are usually organized into hierarchies, and, except for a few public-facing examples, are usually invitation only. Invitation only and vampiric organizations, usually referring to the houses that I mentioned earlier. But yeah, in a sense, vampirism is, according to the left-hand path, of predatory spirituality. Vampirism, in and of itself, is predatory spirituality to a lot of people. So, to answer your question of what exactly is living vampirism, is it a cult, is it a religion, is it a spirituality? Technically, vampirism is, in and of itself, predatory spirituality. Life eats life. Basically, the theory is some kind of energy deficiency. Then we can't either produce it well enough on our own, or we don't produce it at all, and that's why we need to feed on life or some other external source in order to keep ourselves healthy, basically. Yeah, that's essentially everything I wanted to mention today. If I remember, I will put some things in the annotation and or the description. Probably the annotation, because descriptions are a bit weird with what it will allow at the moment. Left-Hand Sorcery might not be for everyone, because it does mention some sort of like more controversial sides of the left-hand path as well, so like, you know, just take everything as you should with a grain of salt. But, you know, that's all I wanted to really say today, so I'll see you in a future video.